Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you to this special show. It's called Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18. The COVID-19 has accelerated digitization of banking as customer expectations have changed completely during the pandemic. This digital change brought forward by the pandemic also helped banks cope with the tougher operating environment that the pandemic brought. But for the longer term, it will be a fundamental step in boosting profitability and returns in the sector. To understand some of the major fintech factors, the major factors that are driving digital transformation in banking and fintech, I'm joined by four very special guests. Akhil Handa, the Chief Digital Officer at Bank of Baroda, Varun Sridhar, the Chief Executive Officer at Paytm Money, Sanjay Doshi, Partner of Financial Services Advisory Leader at KPMG in India, and Vipul Sharma, the founder and CEO of Checkbook. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out and joining us here on this very special show. Akhil, let's start with you. How has the pandemic sped up digitization? And of course, you have 2 years of hindsight and the benefit of that behind you. So tell us, what were some of the key factors?
I think, pandemic just gave us a fillip to what we've been asking for. So my day job is driving digitization for the bank. And whatever I could have asked for in terms of an enabler, in terms of getting customers attuned to using the digital channels, we've got via the pandemic. Because fortunately or unfortunately, the customers really could not come and do transactions at the bank branches while banks were operating throughout the pandemic. But the customers really were not very comfortable in doing in-person transactions. And neither was the regulator, the government, wanting customers en masse to throng the branches, etc. So what that has done is that has given us an incredible opportunity to really bring in, the key enablers that are required to be brought in place. And during the course of the pandemic, there are some enablements that have been put in by the regulators, and the speed at which they've been put in place, I have probably not seen in the past. And I think that is something, as they say, do not ever miss a good crisis. And I think we've made great use of this crisis, and we've seen our numbers through the pandemic go through the roof. And, some of the transaction numbers that we have, within the period of that initial 6 months, we saw 50%, nearly 50% increase in the transaction count. UPI, obviously, was much larger. Digital lending is one area where we actually saw a very significant increase, particularly on the personal segment. So yes, overall, I think it's, the unfortunate pandemic has had a good, fortunate outcome when it comes to the digitization.
Before catering to the needs of MSMEs in this period, what sort of new latest technologies are, players like you using in the market?
I think we were again, born in the pandemic, so to speak, on the neobanking side, and it made us create products with the thought that the customer can't get verified physically. You have to do it digitally. So I think all those things helped us create an ecosystem, and on the technology side, from the ground up, we didn't have any legacy issues. We were not changing stuff, so it was very easy for us to therefore build from the ground up. With sort of digital, verification, you can verify a lot of the business proofs digitally now. So having all those integrations in place from day one helped us a lot. Also understanding that a lot of our customers don't have, for example, GST, so you have to look at other things, FSSAI, you have to look at Udyamata, you have to look at Shop Act, so on and so forth. And then on the lending side, we've always believed that you want to do cash flow underwriting. You don't want to look at certain bits and pieces from different, like payment information or UPI information, because the payments have become very, very small on UPI. So you look at cash flow underwriting. So I think all that has helped us, sort of digitally underwrite. Also look at insurance digitally, so we can give insurance in 2 or 3 minutes on the app. Ground up, that's how it's been built up. It's never been built up with somebody going to the customer. And the same thing on accounts. How do you RBI's regulation on allowing video KYC, for example, for self-employed customers for current accounts has been a huge change in the industry, which wasn't there, some time back. So I think just using those tools helps us obviously onboard customers way faster.
Sanjay, to give a bird's eye view, in the last couple of years, players from the largest banks to the youngest fintechs have realized they need to transform, they need to adopt digital to continue catering to the changing needs. What are some of the biggest trends that have emerged in this space?
Digitalization, and as you put it right, pandemic has really pushed the entire agenda which any financial services player, or in fact outside financial services also, how people are really going digital. And it's a big word. And there are the big aspect around digital is not only technology and automation, but most people and what we hear on this panel also are talking about customer, right? The ease of doing transaction, the speed at which products are available, and including financial services products are available to the customer. And the third element is the entire experience, the journey which the customer sees when they are actually buying anything from any financial services institution in terms of any product. The second element, which is really going hard, and probably we can speak more also on this later, is around data. I think the way the entire technology has been able to help financial institutions have access to data in various forms, that's very important, and that's really a big leverage point for most financial institutions players to not only give the right products to the right customer where it's needed, but at the same time, how are you really enriching yourself in terms of your credit underwriting, in terms of any kind of cross-selling you really want to do. So data is another big trend which has really picked up speed post-pandemic. So I would say two big things: customer service and customer experience, and data. These are the big trends which have really evolved apart from what we just discussed.
Varun, you're already a fintech. You're using technology. Your platform is based on, it is a digital platform. What has changed in the last couple of years? How is the adoption of tech? What will be experience for fintechs like you?
I think, there are three changes, right? I think first is the client has become far more demanding in the way he or she uses the platform, right? And let me give you an example. So if we give an option trading platform, right? Now the client is expecting that he would have no more information arbitrage as compared to an institutional trader, right? Now that earlier was a myth, right? It was really people would tell you, yes, but there was a definite information arbitrage. Today that's gone, and that's gone on a mobile phone to somebody sitting anywhere in India and trading, right? And I think that's one change. So the consumer then says, hey, I have this, what's next? What's next? What's next? And the consumer is continuing to challenge. I think that's one big change. The second big change I think that's happened is the cost versus revenue, right? I think when you have so many millions of clients coming in, so many million transactions happening, I think watching out for your cost, watching out on making sure that you're razor sharp on focus, on delivery is very, very critical. And I think that's pillar number 2. And I think that change is very, very profound. A lot of companies think going digital is easy and it's not so expensive, but actually when you get into it, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work for years together, right? Because to get to 99.9999% system uptime, it's not easy, right? And I think that's the second thing. And I think third, last, most profound change is the future, right? The problem is while we are sitting and looking at the past, the future is changing. So 5G is coming in, and I think that will again flip the whole industry on its head. So if you're not prepared for 5G, you're not prepared for data, I think you're again in for trouble a couple of years down the line.
Let us ask Akhil that, as a legacy institution, how challenging is it for you to transform digitally? I know you always come back with answers like we have Bob World, everything is going online. But the fact of the matter is that, you are legacy institutions and you are large legacy institutions. What are some of the challenges you're facing as you adopt to this fast-paced fintech world?
There are now, because of the expanding surface area of digital, you see more cybersecurity risks. And in our case, we've seen in the industry, there has been a very dramatic increase in phishing attacks because as more customers, first-time customers are coming on board, it is a matter of customer education as well to basically ensure that yes, you have provided them with the enablement, the platform, but they are also able to protect themselves, secure themselves. And, this does take a bit of learning. That's one. The second is, I think, outside of the institution, you also need enablements in place. And, if I can take a case in point, now think about a typical, asset-backed loan. Today, you cannot do an asset-backed loan unless you, for example, do a physical registry. I cannot do a legal check on a property, digitally. I can't do a 15-year title check on a property, right? And all these things do have an element of physicality involved, and hence you cannot completely move digital as well. The enablements that have been put in by the Reserve Bank also are opening up and enabling us in a graded fashion. So it's not like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I can do 10 on 10 today. Video KYC, I can do certain things, and there are certain things that I cannot do at this point in time because, there is, as I said, you deliberately slow down things because you want to test out things, iterate to the right answer. And finally, I think, for us as an institution, instead of moving incrementally, and because that, traditional institutions will take their time to actually swing the needle, we deliberately want to skip a generation. And hence, we want to move ahead, just like we moved ahead from, in let's say a telephony in the country, or we now see, people skipping computers, moving directly to mobile phones. For us also, we don't want to have incremental innovation. So Bob World for us, is positioned as a completely digital bank. So today you can do everything related to your retail banking services on Bob World, right from onboarding yourselves digitally to doing transactions. There's an e-commerce layer around it. You can do a lot of you can do your purchases, etc. So a lot of services inbuilt, around 250 of those inbuilt within the digital bank. And I think that for us is the retail bank of future.
Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18. Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18.
Sanjay, let me address this with you. A future-ready connected retail bank is going to have capabilities to quickly respond to signals, to new opportunities, to capitalize on them. How should financial institutions develop a holistic transformation strategy when it comes to digital?
We'll divide it into two parts, right? I think the one part you spoke about is the legacy institutions. I think the big advantage for legacy institutions is they are they have a lot of customers, first of all. So they are having customers who are engaged with them, who are really transacting with them. And at the same time, they have significant amount of data on transactions, on the background of the customer. There are multiple systems which the bank has, which then becomes difficult to really convert. And that's where Akhil has been right about, how do you just jump a generation and rather than trying to change things, just create new things, right? So that's where real transformation is. But that requires a huge mindset change. That requires a big support coming from the top. So one is you really have to define what do you mean by digital. Digital is a very, very broad word and a very broad word as well. So what is your digital and what is your digital strategy? Now, whether that strategy can be product specific, that strategy can be for the entire organization, that strategy can be for a customer segment. So you can actually take steps of trying to focus on products and customer segments, right? And at the same time, you're really building the entire data warehouse, which is really going to help you leverage on your data. And third is how are you creating partnerships, like what Vipul mentioned, that they are working with partners who are banks on the other side. So how you are really leveraging the new age fintechs really coming up, leveraging their technology, partnering with them, alliances, co-lending. So there are a lot of other regulatory permissions which are available to a bank today. Even in the digital banking units which they are going to set up, right, there will be partnerships there. You will see some of the processes being outsourced subject to what's really regulatorily allowed. So that's how, any organization is going to really change and transform to digital.
Varun, what is, again, to ask you that, how is this sort of transformation that we're seeing making life easier for SMEs as well? They are the backbone of the economy. How is this transformation helping them?
And I'll try and take a slightly different aspect of an SME, right? Because we always talk about SME lending, right? I think we should talk a lot about SME payments, SME cash management, and so on, right? We have a bunch of customers now who on their proprietary accounts, like they're a small business of their own, they would have a turnover of, 20, 30 lakhs. They start to use, for example, Paytm Money to do to not keep money in a current account anymore. So they are saying, hey, look, how fast can I transfer money from Paytm Payments Bank to my Paytm Money liquid fund account, and how much can I move it? Now the arbitrage there is about 3.5% compared to a bank's current account, right? So as I was saying, I think for SMEs from the cash management side, they are now able to say, hey, look, on my mobile phone, I'm able to go from a current account to keeping money in a liquid fund account and then bringing it back. Now, all of that earlier required calls, required a lot of things. Now it's a few mobile clicks and you're done. And I think that's one big impact which is happening. Second, on payments, and I think on accounting, on how they're able to break it up, reporting, I think product has evolved a lot. So what I think the future for SMEs is, I think, and for all SME or consumer businesses, is to separate digital and technology. Because I think we talk more often about digital, but I think the conversation has to now get split saying, hey, what's the digital product that you're creating and what's the technology behind that makes it innovative, that makes it reliable, that makes it scalable, right? And I think that's the conversation that we're having. But SME clients are by far, in my mind, I think the larger users of these digital products because they're able to understand the financial benefit they can get.
Akhil, what are some of the key priorities for a bank like Bank of Baroda, one of the largest ones in the public sector space, as they're looking to transform digital?
Over the last 2 years, the big priority for us has been improving our thrust on digital lending. And today, as we speak, in retail, we have more than 50% of our sourcing happens digitally. Our personal loans are nearly 100% fulfilled digitally. As far as our MSME is concerned, we do more than 35% sourced digitally. So there is quite a bit of traction that we've generated on the lending side. We are pushing the boundary on lending as well. Every product has moved to a certain degree of digitization. We are pushing that degree of digitization even further this year. We are adding new products to that suite. And I think that journey will continue this year as well. The other leg that we're working on is for the retail customers, and we're building up satellites around it, personas for it. Bob World is our flagship digital product. And, the digital bank, as we have, we brought out a separate branding, we have a refreshed product suite. I talked about the 250 plus services. And now we are doing personas for customers. So, this 250 is too much for, let's say, a senior citizen. So we do not really want to, bring on the entire burden of 250 for the senior citizen to navigate. So we're going to give them relevant things right up front and have everything else, stacked behind. So that is another leg that we'll keep on working on. This year, we're also putting in a big thrust on automation of some of our processes, because as digital keeps growing and growing, then while the front end is rapidly digitizing, the back end processes also need to support that kind of digitization. And I think that is where we would love to use more AI, ML into the processes, and that's another area of focus this year.
Sanjay, what are some of the key trends that are emerging in the context of digital banking? The DBU is something that Akhil alluded to. Neobanks is something we've been hearing of. What are some of the other interesting themes emerging?
I think the entire partnerships, which I just alluded to earlier, is something which is really a big theme which is emerging between neobanks and banks, between fintech lenders and banks on the co-lending side. So if you really see on one side, the new fintechs are really coming up with their entire customer journeys, customer experiences. And on the other side, the banks have really getting their technology ready to onboard these customers through the channels of fintechs and provide their products and solutions. In addition, of course, as Akhil also mentioned, right, the banks are getting ready on their own, creating their entire digital vertical. But I think it's not going to be, a one size fits all kind of a story. Each bank, each fintech will have its own strategy, own products, own solutions. And neobanks, for example, there are few neobanks focusing on pure individual CASA accounts, salary accounts or savings accounts. And then you have neobanks which are focusing, like people also mentioned, around SMEs and MSMEs. And the kind of services, in addition to pure play banking services, there are accounting services, tax payment services which are integrated to be provided to the SMEs and MSMEs. So some of the niche which this new age players are really going to bring in, but will be backed a lot by the large bank players.
Vipul, let me give you the final word on the neo-banking space itself. Very nascent for a country like India. What are some of the themes or the trends that are emerging in this space?
I think as we go along, the key major themes, and I actually done a poll on LinkedIn about it. I think the main couple of themes that had come out from the audience there was around neobanks, was around, buy now, pay later, which is again, scaling up. It'll definitely go 10x of where it is right now. And it's going to have some tension with credit cards, as we go along, right? And then you have crypto, which is the sort of third big theme, and that's going to have tension with the regulator. So I think these are the three sort of neobanks. Fintechs is of course also transformed into many. I keep seeing these large panels of which type of companies, which fintech, and it's become so many categories now. There are infrastructure guys, there are sort of KYC people, there are switches, there are consumer facing side, there are partnership led. So it's a big sort of a pool of different kind of use cases being worked on by a lot of people. And I kind of agree with Varun there that that as India is progressing and you get to that point where per capita income goes to $4,000 and then beyond, which I think should happen in the next 2 years. Then you're going to start seeing a lot more of these baskets going up, the ticket sizes going up, and you start seeing India is definitely going to be the biggest fintech ecosystem in the world by far, right? And it's not just going to be UPI; it's going to be everything else. And I think that's what everybody is extremely bullish about. And we get back to the stage that we've been on for the last 2,000 years.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure, Akhil, Varun, Sanjay, Vipul, for taking time out and speaking to us here. With that, we've come to an end of this special show. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV 18. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.